We've all woken up with a hangover, looked at photos from the night before and just thought, who the hell is that? Well, this is the story of one of the most iconic album photos of all time. We've all seen it, the black and white photo, the cigarette, the unfazed look, and millions of people have seen this man's face, and no one knows who he is. And the story of how he ended up being there in the first place is one of the best things I've ever heard. January 2006, I'm sure we could all agree, a much better time. Arctic Monkeys released Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not. It becomes the fastest selling debut album by a band in British chart history, shifting over 360,000 copies in its first week. The album captures something very specific: being young, working class, and knocking around the streets in a northern city at 2 o'clock in the morning. Riot vans, chips, the girl from the chippy. It's a snapshot of the world that felt invisible to most of the music industry. But then suddenly, it was everywhere. And on the front, just a bloke, smoking, staring at you. Perfect. The man is called Chris McClure. He met the Arctic Monkeys the way everyone meets their mates in Sheffield, on the bus. Specifically the number 77. He was 16 and they kept bumping into each other at gigs. And eventually they just became friends. The original photograph was taken by Andy Nicholson, the band's bassist at the time, at a Sheffield venue called the Boardwalk, about a year before the album came out. Just a spontaneous snap, Chris smoking, sitting, and Andy thought, that's the one. But for the actual album shoot, they needed something more deliberate. So when Chris was a student at the Manchester Met, he got a call from Andy. They needed pictures of a lad on a proper night out. So they sent him to a bar in Liverpool with a photographer and assistant, gave him a wad of cash, and the instruction was, go out and get drunk and don't come home before midnight. That was it. That was the brief. So he did. And the photo they got ended up being on 3 million album sleeves. When the album exploded, so did the question. Who is that geezer? Reporters camped outside the pub that Chris worked at part-time. E4 asked if he wanted to be a TV presenter. The Daily Star offered him 10 grand to follow him around on a night out, which he turned down, not wanting to sell out his mates. Legend. Chris is also the brother of John McClure, frontman of Reverend and the Makers, another Sheffield band from the same scene. So this wasn't a random face pulled off the street. This was deeply, specifically Sheffield, which is exactly why it worked. What else is super interesting about this is 20 years on, Chris McClure is now a TikTok star. Not in any way affiliated with the Arctic Monkeys, but you might know him as Sunday League assistant manager Steve Bracknell, the fictional football manager who runs made-up team Royal Oak FC. It's gone viral, and now he's writing a sitcom. He's got a whole creative life that has nothing to do with the cigarette photo from 2005, and he's pretty clear about that. He said he doesn't tell people where they recognise him from. He doesn't want to be remembered as just the guy on an album cover. I mean, it was a pretty good album to be on the cover of, but still, if you think about it, that's the exact sort of energy that you get from the album itself. Refusing to be defined by other people's idea of you. Whatever people say, that's what I'm not. And he lives by that. So, a number 77 bus, a Sheffield pub, a wad of cash, a night out in Liverpool. That's how one of the most iconic album covers was ever made. Chris, for the record, has said that he wished he negotiated 10p per album sold. And at 3 million copies, 300 grand. Not bad for a night out.